Hello, everybody. It is Thursday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, assistant sports editor for multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, joined by Post-Gazette sports columnist Jason Mackey for our weekly chat with him. We got a lot to talk about this week, Jason. The Steelers made their NFL draft picks. We talked about that last weekend at Mike's Beer Bar. We're also going to get into Mike Tomlin's future now that Mike Sullivan has been let go by the Penguins. They've been in a similarly long-tenured, stable situation. The Penguins finally decide to push that button. When might the Steelers decide to push that button if the team is not in a place to seriously contend for at least playoff wins, if not a Super Bowl? Going to get into that, get Jason's thoughts on day 3 of the draft. We're also going to react to the Penguins news itself, get Jason's thoughts on it with a couple days to digest the news and what it means for Kyle Dubas and this team moving forward. In our third segment, airing on our PG Pirates YouTube channel, we're going to talk about things just not improving the way people hoped they would. So please stay tuned for that on that channel if you can. Before we get into all of that, I want to thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Edgar Snyder & Associates. Law firms come and go, but what law firm has been here in Western PA fighting for injury victims for more than 40 years? It's Edgar Snyder & Associates. What law firm has a staff of over 130 people who live and work here? It's Edgar Snyder & Associates. Law firms come and go, but Edgar Snyder & Associates is a name you can always trust. So remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. If you've been hurt in an accident, call them at 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit www.edgarsnyder.com. They're available 24/7. Okay, Jason, I'll just get into it simply. We saw Mike Sullivan let go by the Penguins this week, which has led to some heat for Mike Tomlin. If Mike Sullivan can be let go, why can't Mike Tomlin? It's a question a lot of people are asking, so I'll just ask that question of you.
Yeah, because the Rooneys are unnecessarily adherent to tradition and keeping coaches, I guess would be my answer. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. I think things have gotten stale. I thought what Kyle Dubas said during his press conference, getting into all of this, Adam, and I was there in Cranberry for it, was really intelligent. Say two things can be true. Mike Sullivan can be a really good coach, and he is. Mike Tomlin can be a really good coach, and he is. And it's just not working. And I don't think that this isn't a defense or a reason for why I think the Rooneys are going to move, because I don't think they are. I think they see the world through Mike Tomlin's eyes, and for good, bad, or indifferent, they're going to keep going down that path. But I think it's something all ownership groups, professional sports management teams can look at and say, look, we're not making a judgment that this guy stinks at his job. It's just, we need something different. We need a change right now. And the people who, I get a lot of them, you probably get a lot of them, like people that just want to bag on Mike Tomlin, say he's just not a good coach and he's an idiot. Like, you're wrong. If you want to say that Mike Tomlin's not the right coach for the Steelers, by all means, I think that's a valid argument. So I give credit for, we'll get more into the move, but I give credit to the Penguins and Kyle Dubas for making what is a difficult move and has some implications on him and the Penguins. But it's also realizing nuance in the situation where both things can be true.
I don't know how to evaluate this team's expectations in 2025, and therefore I don't know how to evaluate Mike Tomlin. They kept guys like T.J. Watt, George Pickens, who you might otherwise trade if you're looking at 2026 as your rebuilding target with the 10 draft picks and the possibility of getting a franchise quarterback. They're trying to sign Aaron Rodgers, who certainly probably isn't going to stick around for a situation that he feels is a pure rebuild. But I think we also know this team is constructed. It's not a Super Bowl contender.
You know what? Don't they think they are, Adam? Don't you think the Steelers?
I don't know how they could think they are.
Yeah.
I don't know how they could think they are, and therefore, so what is the bar for Mike Tomlin? And is he similarly situated to Mike Sullivan in this weird place between you have these big names, you want to contend with them, and the realistic notion that the team isn't good enough to do that?
Yeah. You know what I think is interesting in all this, and this is sort of building on what you're saying, I think the Penguins have a far more coherent plan than the Steelers. Like, even the Penguins are further back, right? Like, they don't think they're going to contend this year. You might even argue, say, why are you going to wait all the way until 26, 27? But you know what? Like, that's knowing what you are. That's knowing how to get there. Like, Kyle's got a pretty good idea. Whether they execute it or not, I don't know. But, like, I can't tell you what the Steelers are. I said, I interrupted and said Super Bowl contender because we don't hear anything other than that, right? Like, if you're going to pay an edge rusher $42 million or whatever they pay TJ Watt, like, don't you do that because you fashion yourself as somebody who can, get into the playoffs and do some damage once you're there? Isn't that what we see? The standard is the standard. It's why you're going to bring Aaron Rodgers in here or whatever and pay DK Metcalf $30 million. Like, their actions tell us that they think they're a Super Bowl contender. And you and I will look at this and say they're not, and that's logical. I just don't think it's a terribly coherent plan.
Well, I wonder if the Rodgers move, Jason, is intended to put a veneer of competitiveness on this team where they don't necessarily have the expectations of performing. They like to. That's just how they view things. They don't want to say we're going to tank. They don't want to say we're going to purposely be bad. And Aaron Rodgers signals to people that they intend to win, but do they really? And I guess that makes, specifically with Mike Tomlin, how do you evaluate him in this season ahead? What is the bar for him to avoid a fate like Mike Sullivan just had if we know that the upside here is fairly low?
There isn't one. That's the frustrating part. Like, who cares what the like, I guess I'll put it in an analogy to like going to elementary school. Like, if you get a report card, but it doesn't matter, you're just going to keep moving on and like nobody's judging your grades and you're never going to get tested and you're never going to get in trouble if you do poorly. What's the point in having a report card? Right? Like, if Mike Tomlin goes 5-12, is he getting fired? Probably not. He should. That's the point where the Roonies have gotten to. Like, that way of handling coaches works if you have like good season, clunker. We're standing by the guy. Okay, good season, clunker. It's okay. We're standing by the guy. That's not what they're doing. They're doing the same thing over and over again. So we can talk about how he's going to be evaluated, but it's going to be our evaluation, not his employer's evaluation. And I mean, he's fallen short. He's fallen short. You and I will say the same thing as fans will, and it doesn't matter a lick until the Roonies feel that way. And for whatever reason, they're standing by him.
Well, and it feels like, you have built-in excuses this year. You have built-in excuses in 2026 if you have a rookie quarterback. On the trajectory we're on, Jason, it does not feel like there's going to be any consequences for anything until like 2027 at the earliest. Am I reading that incorrectly?
I don't think so. And that's what I'm saying about not as coherent of a plan. Like, even the Pirates, they're not executing on it, but you saw what they're doing. You see what they're trying to do. Like, I'm not saying that the Pirates are more accountable or handling this better than anybody else. I don't understand why they're going down the direction they are either. We'll get to them in the third segment, but you at least saw the direction. After 2020, we're going to blow it up, stink for a couple years, come out, rebuild back. Like, the Steelers are resisting that. And if their coach is not exceeding 9-8 or 10-7, you would think there would be some sort of change to the process if the standard is the standard. And we just don't see that. So anyway, like, being confused or not completely understanding their plan, or maybe thinking they don't have a plan, I think is completely fair.
This is usually a time of year when the Mike Tomlin venom subsides for a few months. People get excited about the draft. They get excited, about some of the moves maybe in free agency. That is not what's happening in the comments of this YouTube channel, Jason. It's a relentless tide of it doesn't matter as long as Tomlin's the coach. It's just nihilism for my view. Does none of this matter as long as Mike Tomlin is the coach? Or if we believe he's a good coach, is there still a chance that, at the end of this process, you think he has a chance to win in 2027 or 2028 or something like that?
Yeah, I think they do. I think it'll probably not be in despite of him, but I think it will have to be player driven. I look at the Steelers and I think, okay, if they're going to win in 2025, what's that path look like? And I don't think it's Mike Tomlin out coaching his counterparts. I think it's Aaron Rodgers figuring out that he still has something left. Maybe it's George Pickens saying, I'm going to get me a contract at the end of the year and doing everything right. And then him and DK Metcalf being really good out wide. Maybe it's this offensive line being a lot better than they finished the year, having fought Tanu back, Broderick Jones on the left side, whatever. I think the defense showed flashes. Anyway, like, I think it's player driven. I think they can win. It would probably be the worst thing for all of the people in the comments section if Mike Tomlin has a really good year, because that's only going to strengthen the Roonies' feeling toward Mike Tomlin. And he's probably, sign us up for another 10 years of having him here. But it is interesting, man. It is. I know a couple years ago, the intensity wasn't nearly as bright on Tomlin, even last year and especially this year. It's just everything you hear. It's almost like Bob Nutting level, where it doesn't matter as long as he owns the team. It doesn't matter as long as he's the coach. And I don't know. They can be good, but I do understand the frustration over Tomlin. I'm not defending it.
Jason, haven't gotten a chance to get your thoughts on day 3 of the draft and the draft class overall here on the channel. Did you want to sound off on the picks they made? Jack Sawyer in the 4th, Will Howard in the 6th, Y.A. Black in the 5th?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know if I have a ton different to say than what's already been said, but I mean, I like the direction that they've gone. I like fixing the toughness in the running game. I thought Joe Sarkey's column yesterday was very good, talking about how we hear this every year, which is true. But it doesn't mean they haven't tried either. And so just because you've tried something before, what are they supposed to do? Be like, you know what? We're not going to do the physicality thing. We're good. We're fine. No, I mean, you have to try to address it. It was a weakness. So they're going to do the best they can. And I like the players they brought in. I like the combination of Jack Sawyer and Nick Herbig. Some of them adding different elements. I think Sawyer can be a very good player in this fit, or in this scheme. Black the same way. You're going to create some flexibility with Keanu Benton. Will Howard, I'm not looking at Will Howard to start right away, but I'm also not looking at Will Howard to be on the Kris Oladukin plan either. Like, I think he can hang on this roster. I think he can improve. I think he's better than most quarterbacks you're going to get in the 6th round. So is it worth the lottery ticket to me? Sure, absolutely. They've got some open positions at quarterback, and why not take a chance? You could do a lot worse on somebody who put up a bunch of numbers and won a national championship at Ohio State. So I like it. I think a lot of that stuff's been said before, though.
True. So we're going to get into some Penguins here in the next segment. Before we do, just want to thank another couple of sponsors. Studies show that doing even one group exercise class a week can significantly reduce stress. So there's no better time to move your body and reset your mind at UFC Gym. However you blow off steam, they've got it. They've got boxing, kickboxing, Zumba, MMA, HIIT, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, muscle makeover, spin, yoga, cardio core, barre, youth classes in silver sneakers. Ready to feel stronger inside and out? Drop in this week at UFC Gym in Market Square or the Waterfront to try a class for free. Also want to thank our friends in Bradenton, Florida.
Embrace the laid-back charm of island life while sinking your toes in the sand and discovering real, authentic Florida in the Bradenton area. Unspoiled beauty and pristine beaches, a vibrant waterfront downtown energized by local arts and culture, fresh Floridian cuisine with a flourish of rich history, and friendly locals ready to welcome you to this preserved paradise on Florida's Gulf Coast. Plan your visit today at BradentonGulfIslands.com.
All right, we are into our second segment with Jason Mackey. We're talking about the Penguins moving on from Mike Sullivan. I think the stock answer for a lot of people, Jason, has been that this needed to happen. I'm not sure I agree with that personally. I think, like with the Steelers, everyone had a similar expectation of how this season was going to go in the macro. I don't know that people thought they were going to seriously contend for a playoff spot. And this looked kind of what I thought it would look like, and they still brought him back with that expectation. So what do you think changed in the macro between saying he's a good coach and we want him to be the coach of our next good team a year ago and moving on from him now?
Yeah, I think there's probably a difference on how to play this, Adam. And I think you could go two directions with the Penguins' plans going into next season. I think you can look at 2025, 2026 and say, you know what, we've got enough here. We should be going for it. And I don't think that creates a shortcut, but I think it creates a different path on the plan they're on. And I'll talk specifically about what I mean here in a second. But I think Mike Sullivan wants this year to be it, to say, look, we can win now. We shouldn't kick the can. Like, this is the last year of Geno. How many times are you going to have Crosby, Malkin, and Letang together? Which, the answer is this upcoming year, and that's it. Like, Mike Sullivan wants to compete and win now. Kyle Dubas has started making some unpopular decisions, but also decisions that I think are going to help the Penguins long term. I don't love them. I'm trying to separate myself from that, but he is the one in charge. And so I think that's where the divergence or the difference of opinion happens, where Kyle's saying, look, we need somebody a little bit more developmental, somebody willing to take it on the chin here. Maybe it's just time. We need somebody with a fresh set of eyes, somebody who's younger coming up through, with these players. And that's taking nothing away from Mike Sullivan. He's going to coach probably a Stanley Cup contender next year. He's going to be really good. It's just not the right coach for the fit, because I think Kyle Dubas is more comfortable circling 26 and 27, even beyond. Mike Sullivan wants to go now. And so if you have those sort of, I don't want to call them philosophical differences, because that's wrong, but I think they're just kind of seeing the world differently because they have to, because of their positions. And the other reality here, Adam, and I'll shut up after this one, like, there are a lot of jobs open right now. This might have been smart business by FSG to say, you know what, we're just going to cut ties. There's a lot of places Mike Sullivan can work. As long as somebody else picks him up, we're not on the hook for that contract. It's the second biggest in the National Hockey League. If we just do it now, somebody else is going to hire him and we can move on. It's not a problem. So I don't discount that part either.
That said, Jason, we have seen coaching changes give this franchise a jolt twice in the Crosby, Malkin, Letang era. Do you think there's that potential here, maybe not to a Stanley Cup level, but that they exceed the expectations that we're just talking about of maybe 25, 26 is not the year, but can they slip into the playoffs? Can they stir the echoes a little bit? Do they have the pieces in place for that without deviating from their plan too much?
I do. And I think that's part of this too, Adam. I mean, we've seen guys, I hate to continue to bring up Spencer Carberry in Washington, but it's a great comp. It's a great comp because of how quickly the Capitals turned things around. And they did it with players who were misused by other teams, who needed opportunity, young guys that they brought in, grew up, developed. Hershey, Washington's American Hockey League affiliate, has been very good, similar to Wilkes-Barre lately. So yes, that's a comp. They bring in Carberry and he kind of pushes them over the edge. Like, I don't think that's what the Penguins are going for per se, but it doesn't hurt. Like, David Carl from the University of Denver would be a great pick here as a Penguins head coach, because he's been working with younger players, because he has the idea of putting a system in place that takes advantage of these guys. Mike Sullivan is going to do what Mike Sullivan does. He's going to pressure. He's not going to deviate. He's going to try to play with speed. And if you have the players to pull that off, man, that's really good. If you have defensemen who can pull that off, specifically jumping into the play and taking some chances, the Penguins aren't necessarily armed to do that. But if you have another guy who wants to tweak some things and play more of a team concept, a layered defense, insulate your goalie a little bit more than Mike Sullivan's system did, you can have some success there. And the Penguins do have enough young players to turn this around. And one of your points, Adam, was, do they have enough to get into the postseason? And I think they do. I'm not saying they have enough to go on a postseason run or, be dominant or anything like that. But, like, can this team be better than it's been? Yes, I absolutely believe that can happen.
Clearly, this is Kyle Dubas' team now. What is his runway for success? Kind of similar to that Steelers conversation we were having earlier. It feels like 2027, 2028 is the latitude that he's going to get as well when you undertake a rebuilding job like this. Is that the wrong impression? I mean, could things go poorly between now and then and he ends up in a sticky situation, or do you think he's going to get the runway to see this through?
I think he's going to get the runway to see this through, Adam. I think he's making decisions. What he's doing tells me that he has backing from FSG. I mean, they're not going to pull the plug on. You're making decisions that are this impactful, right? Like, you're moving on from a two-time Stanley Cup winning coach. They're going to move on from Evgeni Malkin after this upcoming season, more than likely. They're going to talk about putting a supporting cast solely around Sidney Crosby. You've already seen him make trades and accrue assets. You're going to see them spent differently a little bit this summer. They're going to try to get out from under Jari Karlsson. And I know that's all Kyle Dubas is doing. But the direction that they have charted over the past year, and this is extending it out, 26, 27, 27, 28, he's absolutely going to get that runway to see if he can put this together. I don't know if I agree with it, because he will have been on the job, 5 years at that point, 6 years at that point, like, expecting a winning hockey team that far into your tenure, more than fair, probably less than that, the way the National Hockey League works. But I do think he has some backing from FSG here.
I'll get you out of here on this, Jason. How much do you hate the reflex some people have to talk about Sid like he's a shadow general manager in moments like this? He's never outwardly, to me, presented himself as like a LeBron or an Aaron Rodgers type with an interest in pulling the levers. I'm sure he has his preferences, but he's never seemed like the guy to make demands And yet we get that all the time. Is that a function of Canadian media who desperately want to see him in a more interesting place to them personally, or what's going on with that despite the public persona that he's shown us for 20 years?
No, a lot of it's perpetuated by American media too. It's not a Canadian media thing. I mean, the Canadian media thing is them continually talking like he might want to trade, and he doesn't. He wants to stay here. The coach stuff, or like the meddling things, I don't understand. And that's not like Sid doesn't have conversations with management, because he does, because anybody in Sid's place does. Like, he has an opinion that is different than other people's opinion, but Sid's not pulling the puppet string. And also this idea that like Sid was in love with Sullivan, like only wants to play for Mike Sullivan. No, they had a special bond because they won, because they created something and it worked, and Sullivan was at the center of it, and so was Sid, and they recaptured a lot of the magic from the last decade and all this, and that's great. And Sid has a ton of respect for Mike Sullivan. But guess what? Somebody else comes in here with the same sort of plan that gets something out of the Penguins, that takes advantage of their younger players and puts Sid in a position to extend his career into the 40s while winning. Sid's going to love that guy too. I don't know if it's David Carl. I don't know if it's Manny Malhotra from Vancouver. I'm just throwing names against the wall, but Sid likes that guy because he won, and Sid will like any guy as long as he can help the Penguins win.
Jason, we're going to get into the Pirates here in the next segment, so everyone stand by for that. If you're on audio, if you're on video, hop over to our Pirates channel. That's where that segment will air. Excited to talk about some baseball, but yeah, here we go. We'll see you on the other side.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.